Hey, so I wanted to share with you guys about when I first took I took some. It wasn't like heavy hard substance or anything, but I was inspired by this video I watched. Um, so the video I watched, I just want to give some context. The video I watched was about a guy who was doing his own thing pretty much, and he tried some stuff called ayahuasca, and apparently ayahuasca is like some hard psychedelics. I don't know, something like that, and it makes people go on big mental trips, and then they have things called ego death, and it just seems like the thing grabs your brain and doesn't let go until it's done with what it needs to do, and you come out on the other side. I'm not even sure. You just have an experience, but you have something called ego death, and it definitely makes a lot of sense because uh, when you're out of control for a long period of time, I would think that you lose your sense of self, especially with everything that you take for granted, just kind of phase shifting everywhere and stuff like that. But this back to my story, which goes back to my story. So I took some stuff called Delta 9. It's like THC, like weed and stuff like that, but it's like the only the psychedelic stuff, from what I can understand. So before I used to just go light. I occasionally, like maybe like a handful of times that I've tried THC, weed, and I was just like, okay, like, and but I wasn't too fond of like the you know regular weed, you and then sometimes the edibles. I was just like, let me just go light, and took the CBD, and I'm like, cool, CBD, you just get your body relaxes, your mind relaxes. It's very minor stuff. It flushes out your system relatively quickly. It was like no big deal. So I tried. This was during a time where the stuff was like kind of opening up, and this was like a couple years ago. I tried this stuff at a gas station. Yeah, pretty sure it was a gas station. It was called Delta 9 or Delta 8. Now, mind you, I was already kind of like on this thing where I was just trying out different CBD products and stuff like that. And then I tried this stuff called Delta 9, and I'm like, it was either Delta 8 or Delta 9, one of them. And so it was like gummy jelly type deals. And so I'm like, okay, I wonder what this is because I've been used to CBD stuff. It just relaxes your body, and some of them make you feel sleepy, some of them make you feel a little up. It's like, if I can describe it, it's like the stuff you're used to. If you smoke and stuff like that, it's pretty much the light version of that. It's like it's pretty much weed without all the psychedelic stuff. Um, Actually, my bad. THC is with all the psychedelic stuff, but CBD is just all the other stuff like the body relaxation and things of that nature. So the Delta 9, if I'm right, it's like just kind of, I think it's the processed psychedelic part, just that when weed is just kind of like a combination of both and a bunch of other cannabinoids and stuff like that. But I took this Delta 9, and I took like a few, and I'm like, okay, I just feel a little, you know, like your mind spinning a little bit, but it's sometimes it was either just like the light, just you know, or sometimes it's just like you just feel relaxed. You feel like okay, I'm just relaxed, and maybe I might feel a little drunk. Like when you're drunk and you're really drunk, and the room starts spinning. It was kind of like a light version of that, which sucks because when you drink, you get drunk, and that's like 5 minutes of the euphoria and all the stuff, and um, the rest is just you recovering from the hangover, and not hangover, but just it's just not really the good part. You do all this stuff for like one sliver of euphoria, then the rest is downhill from there, and you just feel tired trying to keep yourself awake. Um, but long story short, apart from all that, I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling anything, and I was kind of bored, and I was living with my parents, my mom at the time, and I wasn't really, I was like, okay, well, I wasn't very feeling very hot living with my mom all the time, so I'm like, okay, let me just try three. So there was like six of them. So I think it was like four or three left, and I'm like, let me just try all four or three or something like that. And like, it can't be that bad. So I did. And, it's weird because, it's like regular cannabis and stuff like that. You don't feel nothing until you feel something. And so here I am thinking, waiting on it. And then I noticed something was wrong, and I was just sitting there, and I'm like, okay, well, if it's a trip, I'll just sit here and quietly deal with it. Um, and I noticed something, and I look around, and I noticed like it was like a in the back of my mind, like I was like kind of pounding like a mental audio that was like, like the how like the little sound effects like dun, 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 dun. I had one of those, but it was just like it was weird because it was like a trigger. So like I heard that, and every time I glanced in the direction, all my attention would be in that direction, and so I'm like, oh shoot, oh shoot, this is gonna be bad. So here I am thinking like, okay, it'll be some stuff, and I'll just ride it out quietly. And I'm like, it just got worse. So I am, you know, my attention is just going everywhere, wherever I'm looking, and then my mind starts swaying, and I'm like sitting here. Now I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my god, you know, like so. For instance, all the stuff I took for granted, like living and your sense of time, all gone. All those stuff you take for granted about just like existing. Like let's say you're going somewhere and you just like, I'm tripping. Like I'm sorry. Like when you go somewhere and you like wonder like oh what time it is it, and you rely on like your watch or something to tell the time. You're not really paying attention, and you just everything is pretty seamless. Um, it's like living in I'm not sure what the frame rate for our eyes are, but it's like 30, like it was like very choppy, like existing was very choppy to me. And I was just like, oh my God, you know. And it was like my sense of time was off. I didn't know where I was at. And then the room was spinning, and then it was terrifying because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't. Every time I describe it, I think I'm better at describing it. But when I first was tripping, it was really crazy. Like I didn't have a sense of of, of time. I didn't have a sense of identity, and then the room was spinning. I didn't have a sense of like position. I didn't have a sense of like of just like the stuff that just happens. You live, you move, you breathe. You don't take into account of like okay, I'm walking. I'm not gonna fall. There's a sense of time. You walk down the street. You don't think about certain things. So I think I was going through like a heavy dose of paranoia, and I freaked out. So I went to my mom. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm tripping out. I also, oh yeah, that reminds me of another thing. I did not have a sense of reality. I didn't know what was real, and the thing is, I didn't see anything. I didn't, sorry, what's that? I didn't have a sense of reality. Um, I did not have a sense of like, you know, like these are real. Like this is real. Of course it's real. Of course it's real. You can see it. It was like nah. It's just like these are images. Could they be real? Who knows? It's just like it was just certain things that was just like the stuff you take for granted. Like of course it is. Of course time moves. Of course there's things exist. It was just like nah. All that stuff was just everywhere, just like shattered. And the thing like all this stuff was not material, but it was just like mental things that you're already taking note of. That is very sophisticated. That's like of you would say of course this happens, but it's like when you're under like the influence or something like that, you just all that stuff becomes questioned. You're like, is this real? Is this that? And you're just to me, it just felt like a spiritual experience where it's like you're just a soul now. You're not really like all that stuff that was holding you down, like this body, the sense of weight, the sense of I'm not even sure how to describe the sense of purpose, the sense of reality. It just didn't feel real. It just felt like you were like a soul just floating throughout the air. You know, it reminded me of when Jesus was talking about how when you cast spirits out, they go to arid places and then they come back. You know, and they bring 7 of them with them, and it's just it felt like you were a spirit. Imagine, yes, I was there, but and yes, I could move my body and stuff, but it was just like all that stuff you didn't feel in your body. You know, you didn't feel like the physicality of things. You just felt like I'm outside of my body. I don't really know. I don't really know anything about anything. You know, and I thought when I every time like I'm better about it, but back then I was like terrified of that experience because it was just like I appreciate thinking, I appreciate my mind. So when you don't have control of things like that, like your brain, is very terrifying. And here's the time where I got it. I say it's accidental because I did it a second time. This happened a second time. So after my mom took me to like a gas station. I got some coffee. I got that out of my system. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do this again. I'm not gonna touch it. The second time, here's the second time where I did it. Now, mind you, after this time, I had not touched the stuff. I actually left all that stuff alone. Um, as far as I understand, I think I might have smoked like some CBD cigarettes called Blanks, but that was it. I was not touching Delta 8 whatsoever. So ayahuasca's out the question. But here's the reason why I took the second one. So mind you, it said CBD. I did not pay attention to the Delta 8. I was just like, okay, well, it's not gonna be that bad, you know. And it was just like a little chocolate square. It's like a little thing like that. And I got that one at a gas station. So I'm like, okay, fine. It's not gonna be a big deal. So I took it, and I was playing the game at the time, and I'm like, okay, it just seemed like a little bit, you know, like I think I just misread the wrapper. Now this thing was like a square. Excuse me. And then I took it, and I'm like, I think I like took like half of it or something like that, or I was eating on it, and then I noticed a familiar sensation. Like I was looking around, and all my attention was where I glanced. I'm like, oh shoot, this is happening again. Oh my god, you know. And then I'm like, I thought I didn't take a lot, you know. And here I'm checking the wrapper, and it turns out I took way too much. That like this thing was like condensed in this chocolate bar. So I'm like, oh my god, I need some help. I can't do this again, you know. So I go to a friend's place. I'm like, I am so glad to see you. I need somebody to talk to because I can't like just sit here and just go through this. And boy oh boy, I'm not gonna lie. Uh, One of the stages with all this like out of control stuff is like agony. You're just in this mental anguish. At least for me, this happened to me. I think it happened twice. Oh my god, I just remember. I'm sorry. I remember, and I feel embarrassed to say this because I'm like, my mom was there and my mom was helping me through it, and I just felt, I felt bad. I still feel bad about it, you know. And I'm like, um, I was crying and stuff. I think I was crying. I was like, I know I was doing something. I was agonizing. I was agonizing bad. And the second time, where I accidentally took too much and I went to my friend's place, um, I was there and we was just chatting. I was just chilling in his garage, and again, I was going through those stages. You know, the world's spinning, my head's spinning. I'm sitting here like out of control, bro. Like just couldn't do anything, couldn't control where my mind was going, and then it was just it was it like a sense of doom. I don't know. It could have been a sense of doom, but it could have been like it was just like a agony. Like I couldn't have that. The room couldn't stop spinning. I just had no control. And you know, my friend was there, and you know, he was there. He helped me out, and it was just, yeah. I just had to ride it out, you know, and that was just it. I had to ride it out. That was, but so back to this ayahuasca thing. Is just that, dude, I can understand the concept of it. I have not taken ayahuasca. I don't plan to take it. I don't want to take it. That light stuff was enough for me, you know, messing around with some stuff I shouldn't have. Um, and that I'm just saying like these psychedelic things. I think there's a good reason why I'm not trying, like, mind you, if people microdose and they do it under a professional, I've heard that that's been very beneficial because these psychedelic things just break your walls down. All those things that ego stuff, and I don't mean like psychological ego. I'm talking about like all that fronting people do, the stuff that's like, yeah, of course I'm, all these lies you tell yourself. When you're placed in a position where you don't have any control, all that stuff falls to pieces. You can't, because it's like you're not conscious to do it. It's almost like lying. There's this thing from I forget what it's called, something silicate, calcium silicate, sodium silicate. It's pretty much dubbed the truth serum. So it's what it is an anesthetic. So it makes sense why it's a truth serum, because to lie you got to be pretty conscious to make up a lie. So that stuff it makes you tired and worn out, and people will ask you questions, and of course you're gonna answer them, because it's just you're out of it. You can't conjure up a lie at that point. And the same thing is with some of these psychedelics. You can't conjure up a lie. You're just out here getting worked by psychotropic stuff. And so you are, like, from what I heard, these psychotropic things, you meet things and they I'm not entirely sure about the whole experience, but the thing is, in that video, the guy took ayahuasca, and he's seeing hallucinations while he was experiencing like reality, and he's seeing things, and I'm gonna take a guess, but these are, I think they're like manifestations of his subconscious mind. But that's just me. I still believe in spiritual things. I'm not gonna hold him on that one, but he said he's seen things. He's seen the masculine and feminine, and he's seen. I would suggest people watch the video, because the video is very interesting, because he describes the beings he's seeing, these entities he's seeing, like three of these Joker type dudes, and they was laughing at him or just had this manic smile, and it was like, my description don't do it justice. I encourage you to just read it. Just watch it. It's very interesting. He talked to this lady. There was a third one, I can't remember. But it was these two entities he was talking to, and he's talking to this lady, and this lady was like kind of coddling him, and telling him, hey, it's okay, don't worry about anything, yada yada. And then there's this masculine force that was like a light, and so apparently, I guess it comes in a double dose. So they gave him a second hit while I guess maybe he was coming down from it. So maybe the process was just that he took a second dose. And then he said he was convulsing for about an hour and a half. And he says that the two entities, like this masculine and feminine entity, were in battle with one another. And he was, that was just it, the inner conflict for that second trip. And then he wrote stuff down and said, like, I've been living the feminine aspects all my life, so I have to start living a masculine aspect. So instead of just being a free bird all your life and all that stuff, and just going unbridled in that concept of what is it, like chaos and creativity and freedom, now he has to go to the other aspects of responsibility, order, and I guess building or structure, something like that. So that's what he eventually did, and so that was the end of that. But my thing is just like I think aspects like Christianity and stuff like that, they tell you to stay away from that stuff, and it's for good reason. Like, I don't think people can handle it. I would not advise people to try those drugs at all, like at all, at all. All the stuff that you took for granted for your reality becomes shattered. All that stuff, all of it, your sense of being, living, all this other stuff, it's gone. It's almost like stuff that's like, like if there was a structure, if this was like a pound of Legos and it was in a box, and I just, that is how like taking these hard drugs would do. They shatter your sense of self. They shatter a lot of the mental things that you take into account. I describe it kind of like, it reminds me of a album by this band called not band, a group called Beautiful Eulogy, and it has a like a hill, and it's a person with a kite, and it's a satellite. So I consider your mental state to be on the earth, like what they say, you're down to earth, like that. And I consider your mental headspace to be like a person with a kite. So you're tethered to the ground, your mind goes everywhere. Your mind can't has a tendency to go everywhere. My thing is, when you take those hard drugs, you snip that kite off, you snip that tether to the ground, which is reality, the ground, everything that's concrete, held down by gravity, your reality, and you go off. Now, sometimes, in my opinion, when you take like stuff like beer and you get drunk, I one of the things I like to do, I've done before is just take notes while I'm doing this stuff. So one of the things I learned, when you're drinking, is that you have this idea of like nothingness. Like that's the thing that mattered. Nothing is the thing that mattered. Now, of course, you get the idea of courage and stuff like that, but the idea of just like nothing, not so much nihilism, but I guess in its own way, kind of like a hedonistic nihilism, where it's like nothing matters, so why not do it? Or nothing, and it does mess with your sense of judgment in your brain, so it makes sense. Um, and I think that could be your prefrontal cortex, but some like I believe that God sometimes just allows you to kind of roam sometimes, but I always considered it to be kind of like like this, like a hedge, like a gate. And let's say there's a house. I always imagine like this is a house, and God allows you a certain proximity of freedom. He said you can move anywhere you want, just don't go outside. And if some people who are a little curious and maybe a little tempted also to go outside the camp, so when you hop outside the camp, there's wildlife, there's all types of different creatures out here trying to treat you like a happy meal. And before that, just like how like some animals they play with their food, they I think the outside forces they do the same thing. They play with their food. So they invite you to go outside, stay outside, and leave the camp entirely. And so I think the same thing with my analogy with the kite is that sure, God may allow you certain freedoms. And I'm not saying to do drugs because the Bible typically tells you don't do any of those things. Don't seek witchcraft, which is the base root of pharmakia, which is essentially like what is that like? It is like drug use, but I'm not sure if it's like drug addiction, but it's like drug use. But just stop. Don't mess with any of that. Divination. Don't mess with that. Any of witchcraft. Don't mess with any of that. Like it's just messing with stuff that just are outside the camp. So don't go outside the camp like that. There's many people who go outside the camp and they just barely make it, and that's just a mercy from God. So it's just like, don't go outside the camp. God has you tethered on the ground for good reason, because He loves you, He cares about you. In my opinion, that kite is rooted in love, and that thing is that allowance is just fine. You are in a a sin-prone body that's just prone to do whatever it wants to do. And, as you grow and learn and gain wisdom and you mature, by the by the mercy of God, you just learn. You have a better understanding. You're like, okay, there's good reason why you don't want me to leave the camp like that. And when you take those drugs, it snips off your kite, and so you fly off, and you fly off into space or wherever, troposphere, stratosphere, whatever, and so your kite just goes everywhere. And so, in my opinion, when you take those drugs and you're just kind of taking the mental state that God gave you for granted, and you fly off over there, you can't make your way back. I think it's like God gives you enough chances to just like, hey, I'm letting you know, don't do this. I'm letting you know that this stuff has a lot of consequences. Don't go over there. Don't go past that line. They say don't go past the ancient boundary. I think that's one of those ancient boundaries. Don't go over there. Some people, there was this guy, Pete Walker, which is a great guy. He said he was with a guy, and I think they took an ayahuasca trip or something like that, and the dude went insane. He thought the music was giving him like directions. Like there was like radio stations. He thought the radio stations was giving him um like purpose and direction of where to go. And so the guy went insane pretty much, and the guy kind of thought he was getting really paranoid. He thought like Pete was doing something to him or something like that. Like he had his best, he didn't have his best interest at heart or something like that. And so the guy, he said he went to the crowd and when he left, he was gone. He disappeared. Um, and that's my point. Like you need to stay on solid ground. And I think there's a good reason why Jesus mentions that. Now, mind you, it could be just stick with Jesus and the spiritual practices, but other things, I think it's just like just as solid as this desk is. God has a solid perspective. He has a solid plan for you. Now, mind you, I get it. You have to work. You have to do stuff. You have to do your taxes. There's a lot of human responsibilities you have to do, but there's also the spiritual responsibilities that you learn that is beneficial for you to have. You need to have a purpose beyond yourself. You need to have a purpose beyond this material life. And you need to not look at outside forces. Those outside forces will lead you astray and take away all the stuff that you take for granted in this world. That I believe is a gift from God. To have a solid mental space is a gift from God. To have sight is a gift from God. To have even your pain receptors, it helps you keep you alive. I believe part of that is a gift from God. Um, to be loved in a solid childhood household. To have a good childhood is a gift. It's a gift. God is love, and if your family, if you have responsible parents and all that stuff, it just blesses you all the way down. Where like the God is compiled of good, and unfortunately, we live in a man-made system of humans. In different places, and people are not always charitable. Regardless of what God says, sometimes humans are just not charitable to take care of the poor, the needy, or the widow. Even though God called people to take care of the least of these. So, I guess what was I talking about? So don't mess around with all this extra stuff that's out here. Um, be aware. There's a bunch of stuff in your life, your body, um, your mind, your spiritual health is things. Don't take them for granted. Don't take them for granted. If God said it, it's typically for a good reason. It's to keep you safe. It's not to harm you. It's to help you. Um, these bad trips, these trips at all, from hard drugs and etc., or even new age practices, they're not meant to help you. They're meant to keep you busy, distract you, and keep you take the things you take for granted. You take your soul away. So don't pursue those things. I don't. I personally don't care what people tell you about. Oh well, you just had to have the right mindset. Listen, it's pretty simple. Like, just if you follow Jesus and you follow the teachings of what Jesus says, it's not really particularly hard. It's just encouraging you to be a good person. And then just sharing your transformed life with other people as Jesus as the head. Like, we all have a journey to go. We all have a journey. So that's something I have to say. Just that's it. I guess that's it. You got to stay away from them hard things. I would prefer you to stay away from all this stuff, but just stay away from that stuff.